Hey, peace and love, family. I had to do this one today to break stuff down and let people know that what's going on is not sweet. I'm not sure if everyone knows, but we are still in the Crusades. This is a soft war compared to some of the years where, they were literally raiding and rioting and a hard war against the Moors. Now, since the fall of Granada, 1492, Europeans had already, just a few years earlier, gave the Moorish Jews a formal warning to get out because this is what was about to happen. I want everyone to understand that that wasn't the total fall of the Moorish Empire. That was the fall of the Moorish Empire in Spain, which led to them coming over here to the Americas uh, to finish off what they started in Spain, and from there go around the rest of the world and do the exact same thing. See, the Moorish Empire, right before that time, you could say, um, it stretched from the Americas all the way to Asia, what we call in Asia now. Um, and there's still remnants of our empire over there. Still people using the same governmental structure. Um, that one of the last sultanates is still alive and kicking right now over there, and I'm gonna get into that pretty shortly. But I want people to realize that this myth of the bullshit that Christopher Columbus, had heard about some route to, going somewhere else and finding spices over in India. That's some bullshit. That is bullshit. They knew exactly what was over here. What you got to realize is the Europeans that were alive, that were actually the ones doing the conquering and things that were starting to gain power, they had heard of Mansa Musa and his pilgrimage to Mecca, where he dropped so much gold on the way that it destabilized the whole economy of Egypt and pretty much everywhere on the route too. He dropped so much gold that gold lost value because they had no clue that there was even so much gold in supply, because we were so abundant with it in the West African Moorish Empire of Mali and all of our other kingdoms that were a part of the Moorish Empire. So they knew about this pilgrimage. They knew about all this gold. Now, Mansa Musa had a story for him that was even better about land. See, they know about his brother. See, his brother, Mansa Musa's brother, older brother, came over to the Americas. Um, I want to say he came with like 200 ships. You know, uh, uh, this was in the 1200s, I want to say. So this was before. This was a little bit before his pilgrimage to Mecca, before Mansa Musa's pilgrimage. Now, when Mansa Musa's brother didn't return, they sent another fleet of ships over there, a few thousand, or maybe it was about 500. I don't want to be fucking up the numbers, but the story is well known. And my point is that story was well known not just in Africa, it was well known in Europe, which was poor. So we have to realize that, with stories and tales of all these gold, the golden city of El Dorado and, things of that sort, they had heard of these stories during the time of the Moors, during the time of the Crusades. You got to realize that Mansa Musa's pilgrimage was during the time of the Crusades. He was doing very well. You know, Moors were doing very well in Africa, even though we were fighting in what you would call Europe and the Middle East, because we were fighting on several grounds at that time. So, with the fall of Granada, Spain fell. The Moors jumped down to Africa. Europeans started sending ships to look for um, where all of Mansa Musa's people were going to, because they knew they wasn't in India. They knew about this land over here and the stories that were behind it, that we don't even know the full stories of probably what they were told. Like, I'm still going back looking for more of the story. Not to say that I haven't seen some of it, but I don't have the most in detailed stories on it, or at least on what they knew. But it was known universally pretty much what was over here. So they were coming for our vast estate. They had took our estates in other places. This is what the Crusades was about. Tar just wanted to go in, more than me on, Secret Treaty of Verona, Unum Sanctum, and all of these other things. Then not say that I don't know about them, but I don't teach them, per se. I teach on things that are more applicable to remedy today. And not to say that they aren't the cause of it, but I focus on how we deflect away from that stuff. So these policies we know, as Moors, if you listen to this, I hope you've listened to Taj and some of these other Moors to know more about the history. If not, go back and then come back and watch this later. But they knew about the Moorish lands, which is why they made decrees specifically saying that they could take the lands of infidels or Moors that they knew were not Christians, because the Moors, not being Christians, I'm gonna have to go back a little bit. I was having a conversation on Instagram telling someone about the Moors. Um, to say that you were a Moor back then was basically an African or someone with African Moorish bloodline or descent that specifically stood up to them, was fighting their asses hand in hand. They knew us as the nobles, as the kings of vast, great empires, from Egypt on to Morocco, all the way over here to the Americas. So, when you say you're a Moor to these Europeans, when you declare your nationality, that's what this picture is about. When just having knowledge of self, it's a jab to you in the coon. But proclaiming your nationality is staring into the eyes and declaring who you are and what you're here for, what we're here for, and that's to regain our throne. So, when we say that we're Moors, you know, we're standing up directly to Europeans who know exactly what's up. You know, we're standing up to the Crusaders and saying, you know what? I know who I am now. I might have been born asleep, but now I'm in the game. I am a soldier, and I'm a soldier on the other fucking side against you motherfuckers that has came after us for so long with war, law, and disease, and any fucking thing you could think of and try at to come after us. And are still doing it till this day. Which is the reason, such a graphic picture. I'm normally a little bit lighter, in my YouTube videos in particular. I don't like to get into the grimy side, but people need to know, and as being a Moor, you have to understand that we're at war, so they've been conquering lands, since the Crusades. They've been trying to destroy the establishments that we had set up all around the world. And they did a damn good job in America. They did a damn good job in Asia. You know, we have now all these countries that are pretty much what you could say whitewashed at this point. You know, when Thomas Jefferson and them in the 1700s were saying that, they and England were the only lily whites basically on the whole fucking globe. Everyone else was Moors or um, mixed Moors, which goes into that free white persons, and I'm gonna do a video on that pretty soon too, breaking down what free white persons is and how they included us in that definition and why. See, if you go back and look at the definition of free white persons, everyone in the definition is mixed except for the Moorish inhabitants of Spain and the Moorish inhabitants of North Africa. So what is everyone on the list that are crackers mixed with? Moor. I'm gonna just prove that, without a doubt pretty soon. But let's keep going with this story so you can understand the vastness of this war that we are in when we wake up. We all know that there was a lot of revisionist history that happened. So, from the time of, let's say, George Washington and them, because we know the presidents before George Washington were Moors. They were part of the Continental Congress and rocked the Continental flag and not just the American banner. So they have different records. So from Georgie and them on until the time of the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, we, for the most part, were totally out of there as far as knowledge. They had wiped us clean. It was a fresh slate for a lot of us. They were telling native borns that they had kidnapped as children, that they were slaves and brought over from Africa. And a lot of them believed it, until the time where Noble Drew Ali popped his head up and was able to reclaim our nationality, our nobility, our mindsets, our consciousness. See, the stuff Georgie and them were doing was helping out, finishing off with the Crusades. Even though they were fighting against some of their own, they would much rather places like Haiti and Dominica to be whitewashed than to have mulatto minds or pale minds in power, as opposed to what the people actually look like being in power. And this happened in Mexico, which was Moorish, indigenous Moorish. This happened anywhere you can think of: China, Asia, Middle East, India, any place you can think of, now that has light-skinned people that were pretty much originally melanated indigenous peoples there. And our empires, they broke up into separate kingdoms and empires. So what was part of the Moorish Empire, we could say, stretching and directly being under the influence of the sultans from Morocco to Egypt to Baghdad, and the caliphs, not just the sultans, because the sultans actually came after the caliphs. But the thing is, they started breaking off. So going further east, and I even say crossing over here to the Americas, we had different political structures. So there were Buddhist Moors, there were Dravidian Moors, there were Manchurian Moors, and wherever you want to go, the Philippine Islands, or all of these places, they still have remnants to this day of the Moorish Empire of Islam. Some of them still practice. They still have mosques in China, all through Asia. They accepted the lifestyle and religion of Islamism or of Sufism or of Moorish science in a lot of these places. Whatever you want to call it. But if you look into who's there now, a lot of these places have been whitewashed, and a lot of it is through wars. But you can look at a place like the country of Brunei. The Sultan of Brunei is one of the last Moorish, you could say, emperors, like Haile Selassie. But this brother is still around. Now, I mean, if you look at him now, the people running Brunei, you would say they look like mixed Asian. He's not a typical melanated Moor, but we understand what happened throughout all these years. But most people don't know that a lot of the Moorish treasure not only came over to the Americas, but also went um, to to these islands as well. Um, excuse me, the island of Java. During the 1500s was one of the richest places in the world because we had a lot of Moors that were escaping the Crusades, knowing what was going on what you could say the American and the European front, and decided to travel and get out of that. And the Sultan of Brunei was the richest man in the world, and is still up there in the billionaires list. Um, he was only surpassed in the 90s by Bill Gates and a lot of these tech guys when they start getting big. Warren Buffett now has passed them. Um, what's the cracker that's over Amazon and passed them now? A few of these people, but this guy has still some of the biggest wealth, and is still one of the richest people in the world. Like, he's richer than the Saudis, who we know still hold down the Moorish tradition. So think about that. you know, so the Moors were all over, and we had people that escaped to some of these places and preserved a lot of our history, which is why we're able to bring some of this back to our people now, because not everything was erased and destroyed with the Crusades. So if we go from the time just of Noble Drew Ali, to now, yeah, there's still powerful Moorish countries, empires, dynasties. You know, um, you got to realize Haile Selassie, was after Noble Drew Ali. Not to say that they didn't live around similar times, but the prophet passed first. I'll say it like that there. So, this Moorish empire, even Haile Selassie, you could say was one of the Moorish rulers of the empire, even though his side was more from the, you could say, Judeo Christian, Hebrewish, Israeli, not Israeli, Israelite um, lineage more. They, the Rastas, talk about Babylon and all of that there, because that Ethiopia was a country that had long been supposedly Christian, and actually caused a lot of the splits with the Moors between the Christians during the time of the Crusades. So with this fight going on through all these years, you know, people got to realize, it's nothing sweet. So when you step out and say that you're a Moorish American or whatever, you're declaring that you're a soldier in the war at that point. Just to be totally honest, you know, whether you're a foot soldier, whether you're a general, whether you're an archer, a horseman, or medic, or just the one that holds the flag or beats the drum, you in that thing now. Realize that, and they know who you are exactly, and see that you know now, because at first they thought you were asleep. When you're in that black slave, Negro, African American minded status, they know you're asleep. When you wake up and poke that dagger in your straw man, look them dead in the eye and say, "No, I am a Moor," you realize you've just entered the game. You just put on your uniform, so you got to be prepared to battle. You know, at any time, and I don't necessarily mean physically battle. The pen is mightier than the sword. Um, I've heard a statement that the pen of a scholar is more valuable than the life of 1,000 mortars. So, hey, I mean, I'll say choose wisely, what you plan to do, but understand what game you're in when you say you're a Moor. And this is why we need to have unity as Moors, because we're in the war of the Crusades still, but at the same time, there's infighting and bickering amongst ourselves, which is how they got to the position they were in. Like I said with Ethiopia, that was a big part of helping them, you know, get to where they were, because they had, treaty relations and, you know, piggybacking off of truly what was and is a Moorish status, and a Moorish religion. Just to be honest, Christianity, Judaism, it's Moorish. You know, it's all our people. Yeshua, Yahashua, Jesus, however you want to style it, was a brother, one way or the other. And they wouldn't go through so much time in the Bible recording who begat who begat who begat who begat who all of these years, thousands of years, you know, to forget about who we were. They wanted to make sure that it could never be misconstrued. And, they had to take books out and hide them to prevent, the genealogy and bloodlines that are more recent than that of, let's say, Abraham. His is recorded in the Bible, but like I've heard, and I haven't done all the research into it. I've read it a little bit, but like the book of Maccabees, has much more recent bloodlines that trace back to those times, but go to more medieval times, showing bloodlines coming into the Merovingian dynasties and some of these other bloodlines that were Moorish. But of course, this stuff is hidden. They take that kind of stuff out so it won't be in the context that would hurt them, because they use the Bible as a tool instead of as history and genealogy and the science textbook that it is. They try and use it as an instrument for slavery. And that's why you're able to find so many different contradictions within the book. Not to say that there isn't truth there. So I just want to reiterate, people, when you proclaim your nationality, you're staring the European in the eye and declaring exactly who and what we're here for. And that is our motherfucking throne back. Peace and love, family. I love y'all.